So the additional information, so I don't know if you guys have this in my office, if you don't move for a period of time, the lights turn off. So you can get up and move your arms. Sometimes arms help, but not this time. So you'll see me in the dark. Okay, so I want to touch just a moment on liquidation. There'll be some additional guidance sent out to you soon. Probably in the first 2 weeks of December, we'll send out some additional guidance about liquidation process. You may have already received it from Sherry Harmon anyhow. But the thing I want to remind you of is that your liquidation period, you have the 90 days to liquidate your expenses, right? So at the end of the project, the salary costs of individuals that are going to prepare your APPR, are going to prepare your final report, those are allowable obligations that can be incurred during the liquidation period. You cannot incur expenses. So if your grant is ending on December 30th and you're not doing a no-cost extension, you will have 90 days to basically pay all your bills, to expend that money. You can also pay for salaries related to any of the preparation or submission of required reports. So if you have someone working in January or February on the APPR or the Renewal Grant Final Report, you can pay funds for those staff during that period, even though it's past December 30th. Those are allowable expenses during a liquidation period when you're completing reports that are required by the grant. You also have the option to request an extension of your liquidation period past the 90 days if you're running into a problem liquidating all those expenses. Remember, you can't be doing new work. So the only new work you can be doing is completing the APPR or the Renewal Grant Final Report or your fiscal budget reports, you know, your 90-day final FFR, that fiscal financial report. But other than that, you have that time that you can charge those expenses to. If you're going to have a no-cost extension, and the no-cost extension is, you still have a liquidation period, but the liquidation is for all those expenses that you, the work that you completed up to December 30th. So you'd have a 90-day liquidation period, but what I just talked about won't affect you because you'll have a no-cost extension period and you'll be using your regular no-cost extension funds to pay for staff and to do the APPR, et cetera. When you get to the end of your no-cost extension period, you will have a liquidation period, and you again will have the ability to charge salaries for anybody who's preparing those final reports. Questions about that? Okay.
Richard,
Yes.
well, so would that be the same 90 days? So say if you
Yep.
have a no cost extension for 6 months, you have another 90 days to liquidate.
That's right. You always have 90 days, regardless of how long your no-cost extension is.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
This
Okay.
is Meredith from New Hampshire again. Is there documentation of the allowance of those salary expenses during the liquidation period that I could share with our budget people?
There is. And so what's going to happen, that's what when I said a little bit ago that you'll probably be getting some documentation within the next week or two. You're going to get the 45 CFR references.
Perfect.
And that have that information that you can share with anybody who needs to see it. So you'll have all that information. We may be able to get that to you even the beginning. I'm expecting we'll get that to you the beginning of next week. But we'll send you information on liquidation and closeout, et cetera, so you have it.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Richard. I just wanted to get clarity on this and tell you what I think I heard. So,
Wait, so first of all, I don't see everybody, so if you could tell me who's talking.
Oh, sorry, it's Kristen from New York.
Thank you. I'm
Yep.
still not,
So
I should know your voice by now, but I don't.
That's all right. So this is my point of clarification. So if a liquidation period occurs at the end of a grant year.
It also occurs at the end
Right.
of every grant year. So a liquidation period, so if you have 3 year grant, at the end of each year, there is a liquidation period related to the expenses of that year that just passed. Then at the
Okay.
end of the entire grant, you have a
Mhm.
final liquidation period that's taking
Right.
care of all final expenses.
Okay, so I am requesting a no-cost extension
Yeah,
and the grant, and it's the end of a year. So I do need to have a liquidation extension possibly that goes into April, say, if I need it, or no, I don't.
No, you don't. So what happens
Okay.
is you put in your no-cost extension request. That's
Okay.
going to allow you to roll monies into the next year to be spent for whatever length of time you've deemed you needed. And then
Got it.
you're going to have 90 days from December 30th to liquidate, to pay out any expenses for work that was completed by December 30th. If you
Got it.
find that you need more time, let's say one of your contractors hasn't sent you the invoices, or
Mhm.
it's taking longer for another state department to cover expenses to process their payment, then you can request an extension of the liquidation period for 2022. In the
Okay.
meantime, you're spending money in 2023 based on the no-cost extension that was approved. And at the
Mhm.
end of that no-cost extension period, you will get another liquidation period that will cover any
Okay.
of the expenses that were generated during the no-cost extension period.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the question. I'm sure there were other people who had that question too. They did know it. Okay, other questions? Okay, so there are two more topics. Wait, hold on. I see something.
Sorry, this is Diana from Alabama. Can you just briefly explain the difference between a carryover request and a no-cost extension?
Sure, and I may have used the term in this conversation, I may have used the term incorrectly, so thank you for pointing that out. A carryover request is something that occurs when there are additional years left to the grant. So in year one, you carry over into year two because it's an already approved 3-year grant. In year two, you carry over to year three because the third year was already approved. So you're not having a competition to get that funding. You're just moving grant funds from one year into the next, a lot because your grant period is of a certain length of time. A no-cost extension comes at the end of the final year of the grant. So if this was a 1-year grant, you would have to have a no-cost extension if you were going to spend money after that 1 year. If you have a 3-year grant, you have to do a no-cost extension at the end of the 3rd year. It's no longer, so this is why that sometimes I get confused when I say the terminology, because you're still carrying over the funds. I mean, it's still easy to see, well, can't you use those terms interchangeably? Well, from a programmatic point of view, maybe, but not from a fiscal point of view, not from a budget point of view. So the no-cost extension allows you to do the same action of carrying over funds, but the actual fiscal terminology of a carryover only happens in the in-between years of a grant, and the no-cost extension happens from the last year of the grant and allows you to extend the life of the grant for an additional period of time.
That is absolutely perfect. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
That makes complete sense.
Good. I'm glad. Sometimes I don't make complete sense, so that's good to know.
Yeah, I did not understand it that way until you just said it though. So really, thank you.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, 3-month liquidation period or approved liquidation extension only allows for obligated funds only, correct? Plus now understanding the extent. Okay. So let me talk about this again in 2 different ways. If you are a state or territory that is going to obligate all of your funds at the end of this year, and you have no other years left, you're not a grantee that's going to go from year 2 to year 3, because this doesn't, if you have no other time left to spend your grant, to spend your funds, and you're going to obligate all your funds at the end of this year, you get a 90-day liquidation period, and you have time, and you're only basically paying the expenses of the work that was completed at the end of 2022. And you can ask for an extension if for whatever reason you can't pay out all those expenses and you need more time to pay your bills. So you'd have to submit a written request to Sherry Harmon. She would grant you a written extension and you would get a new liquidation final date. If you are a state that is going to either be a second year getting third year funding, or a state that is going to request a no-cost extension, you will still have a liquidation period. You still have, and you still follow the same thing that I just told you, but the difference is you're now working on two different things. You have new funds that are in 2023 that you're spending that have nothing to do with the liquidation period. So this liquidation period is only covering paying out of bills obligated and work completed by December 30th, regardless either way. But if you get a no-cost extension, then you have, or if you're year 2, year 3, and you're carrying over funds from one year to the next, you still have to do a liquidation on all the work accomplished in the present year. And then at the end of the next year, you will get a different liquidation period to cover the expenses and pay the bills that were expended from the work done in 2023. I hope that makes sense. So the question is, will there be a Q&A document? I wasn't planning on it, but there have been enough questions that I think I need to do that. So although the guidance we send you on liquidation and no cost will probably be sufficient, we'll take a look at these questions and answer them, put out a Q&A document. So, and anybody can come back and listen to the recording if you don't mind listening to my voice. You could do that as well. Okay, any other questions about any of the things I've talked about so far?
Can you hear me? This is Leslie
Yes,
Levy
Leslie.
from New Jersey.
Yes,
I had a question in the chat and I don't think you saw it. When you were talking about the staff salaries that could be used the following year to do the reporting, is that strictly staff or if there are contractors working on those reports?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer. So I'll have to ask, I'll get that to Sherry and get an answer for you.
Okay,
In
great.
fact, what you may want to do, anyone who I haven't answered your question, if you want to shoot me an email after this meeting, this way I
Okay.
can make sure you personally get back a response, even though it'll be a response to everybody as well.
All right. Thank you.
I was under the impression that it was only staff, but that may be wrong. So let me check it out. We'll check it out and we'll see. On the other hand, if you think about it, it shouldn't matter because it's still carrying out the work that's required from the grant. So I could see how you could go either way. We'll get a final answer from the person who approves all those things.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Okay. Are there any other questions about anything that we've already talked about?
Richard, this is Lois from Oregon. Would you
Uh-huh.
remind us to whom we send our no cost extension? Is it in
Oh.
Grant Solutions only, or do we send
So-
it to? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Judy, what have we been doing? Have we just been sending in grant solutions or have we been doing both?
No, we've been doing, so what we've been doing is states will submit a no-cost extension with the programmatic narrative to their federal project officer who reviews it, approves it, then sends it to Sherry, and then Sherry usually, over the past couple of months, what Sherry does is she provides direction for the state to submit and upload the request in Grant Solutions.
Okay, great. So send it first to your federal project officer. They'll review it. They'll let you know it's okay, or they'll come back to you with questions. And then when Sherry reviews it, she'll send you an email and say, please go ahead and enter this in Grant Solutions. By the way, there's nothing wrong if you do it simultaneously. But the point that Judy was making is that it has to be approved by program first before Sherry will act on it.
Thank you, Richard. That's what I thought, but it's been a day, so I thought I might as well ask my question.
Well, look, I'm in charge and I had to call on Judy. So the question is obviously a good question to ask. Uh, all good, all good. Ask any questions. There's no such thing as bad questions. Okay, any other questions about any of the things we've talked about so far? Okay, so two things. One of them was already touched on by Kristen. What's going on with the competitions? Particularly the planning grant. You probably are less interested in the renewal grant since there are none of you. But the two competitions, they are being paneled. The applications are being paneled. We have, probably you have the same thing in your state, but we have an extensive process to go through to get the, once they're paneled and reviewed, and then they have to go through a clearance process and approval decision memos for award, and then they have to be entered into the system, and funds have to be certified, and so on and so forth. So because of all the steps, we are aiming to get all of the awards generated before Christmas. That is our goal. As some of you know from past experience, we had some awards that didn't go out until December 31st. We don't want to be in that situation again, but that could possibly happen. So we will ensure that all grants go out by December 31st or whatever day Friday is at the end of the December. But we're aiming to have all of the awards generated before Christmas. Fingers crossed, we will be able to do that. As I said, however, we are not allowed to, well, I actually didn't say this, I only thought it. We are not allowed to share with you who has gotten funded and who hasn't been funded until the grant awards are generated. So the grant awards get generated when you get an award, or when the awards go out and we know that people have received their awards, we can then notify anyone who did not receive an award that their effort was unsuccessful. So unfortunately, there is no quick timeline for this to happen. My expectation is that you would not get a notification. It'll be a Christmas present or a post or a New Year's present or something, but it won't come out much before that. The other thing has to do, you know, that we are having a competition for a new TA contract. I don't remember if I've said this before or not. The only reason we have a competition for a new TA contract is because, unknown to us, the way the existing contract was written didn't allow us to extend a longer period of time. At the time that the contract was created, there was no expectation of additional funds, and so there was nothing built in to allow for extension of the existing contract. Over the course of the few years that SRI has been providing TA, Congress decided to continue funding us, and when we made an attempt to extend the contract, we were told we could not. So we had to do a new competition, and we also did not have time to do an extensive, we wanted to do a multi-year competition, but we could not do that because it takes at least a minimum of 9 months and usually longer to get through our clearance process for a new contract. So we went the expedited route, which is a 1-year TA contract. And SRI knows that regardless of whether they are selected or someone else is selected as the TA provider for this coming year, next year we'll be doing another competition for a longer term TA contract. So we don't want to keep going 1-year contracts. That's not the goal. But this was more of a technical process problem that we could not overcome. So SRI has a TA contract until December 26th. Our goal is to award a new TA contract before Christmas. And we'll do everything we can to have that happen. Should it not happen, then we will award the TA contract as soon as we can after Christmas. And then you will be notified of continuation with SRI or who the new TA provider would be. In the meantime, we'll have a transition plan. We have a transition plan that's in development with SRI, so that we can transition resources and information should they not be the person, the provider chosen. And if they are the provider chosen, there's still a transition plan from the old contract to the new contract. So either way, there's transition, and we'll communicate to you in the new year what you need to do and if there's anything different that you need to do. Okay, that being said, any questions about those two announcements? I'm not sure I can tell you much more, but you could ask the question. Okay, so now you're open to any other question on any other topic that you might have. And we count hours worked above and beyond our 40 hours per week. So the way I usually answer that question is you need to talk to your fiscal staff to see what is allowed. But I will also include that. I will include the guidance on matching when we include the guidance on liquidation and no cost extension. I do not believe, well, I shouldn't say anything. I don't know. So we'll get you an answer to that question. Any other questions? Okay, those of you who know me know I asked that question 3 times. And so I will ask the question 3 times. If at the end of the 3rd time there are no questions, I will then bring this meeting to a close, and we'll thank you all for being part of it. Actually, I do have something to say. So, everybody knows the annual convening is next week, because we don't have enough to do. So thank you to SRI for all of its hard work. Thank you to states who are going to be presenting for all the work that you're going to be doing. Thank you to all the states who are going to be attending to hear from the feds and from the states. As you know, or as I hope you know, each day is a different theme. So workforce, equity, sustainability. And you should have registered, or you should have staff, or you can register as many people as you want. Based on feedback from the planning committee, which included some of you, there was a desire to have state planning time. And that basically, if we go from workforce and then we log off and the next day we're in equity and the next day we're in sustain, we don't have any time to process anything or to figure out what to do with all the information we're hearing. So what we've done is we've built in state planning time. Ideally, if you are attending, you will be attending with colleagues of yours, so that when state time comes, you can go into your breakout, into your state-specific room, breakout room, and you can basically consider, what have I heard? How does this match with what I'm doing or what I would hope to do? Is there something here that I want to commit to when we get back? Is there something that's very clear now? We have to make sure we present this information to leadership, or we have to make sure we pull in this other department to talk about this pilot we heard about. Whatever it is, we have to just make sure we build time for us to come together and plan. Whatever it is, some sort of thinking about what you heard and what will your next step be after the convening. And you'll make a commitment statement to yourself, to us. We can't hold you accountable, so it doesn't matter what you say to us. But you'll hopefully make a commitment statement to yourself that basically says, this is what we're going to do, after the 8th. And that helps give you some direction on each of those 3 topic areas. So I want to encourage you now, if you're the only one who registered, or if you haven't registered, to please register, to register your colleagues, as many as you want, and to please use that state time for the purposes. We will give you 2 specific questions to be thinking about. We will each day, and then at the end of the 3rd day, we will actually have a chance for a federal response to the 3 days. So we're looking forward to you all attending. I know there are challenging competitions for your time. There are things going on in your own states, the things going on in your own lives, right? I mean, so do what you can do, but we really would like to see as many of you as possible attend and make use of this information. It is even though there is a no cost extension period for some of you, it will be the last period of time for some of you as well. And we'd like you to be able to hear from each other and build off of each other's ideas. The last thing I want to say about that is, ideally, we would have had every state present on something. I personally would like to have heard at least one thing from every state, but we couldn't do that structure-wise. We couldn't do that just in terms of the number of days we have, because they're virtual, the number of hours we have. And so you're only going to hear from a subgroup of states that in no way, you may be listening to a presentation and you may go, hell, I'm doing something even better than that. Why didn't they call on me? And it was no, not because we didn't want to call on people. Maybe we don't even know the degree to that you're working on something. So what I also would like to challenge you to do is, after the convening, and we'll say this in the convening as well, after the convening, if there's something that you're doing that is similar to, or maybe even very different from what you heard, we're going to ask you to send your emails to us. Let us know that. Let us point it out to us. Hey, here are some of the things we're doing to expand slots. Hey, here are some of the things we're doing to address workforce challenges or equity in our systems or sustainability. Do not assume that we know what you're doing, or that you weren't selected because somehow we didn't think it was a good job, because we probably don't have anywhere near enough information to be able to make such a judgment statement anyhow. So I want you to know that, so that everybody understands that I would love to have heard from everybody, but we just don't have the time to do that. Okay, so that having been said, I just see another question here. If you have a no-cost extension, you still have a match related to the no-cost extension amount, because you only met the match for the amount of funds you expended in this year. So if you had a $5 million grant and you're going to have a no-cost extension for $2 million, then you will have only had the match for the $3 million that you obligated and expended in this year. And then when you spend the funds, you do the work and you spend the funds next year that are part of your no-cost extension, you have to have the match for that. So it's still the match, the total match amount hasn't increased, but when you meet the match goes along with when you expend the dollars. And then should you be awarded a planning grant, yes, you have a 30% match, and that's a totally different 30% match, because that's totally different money. So yes, absolutely. Okay, so now my 3-time question. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Does anyone have any comments or questions? Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you. I hope to see you all at the convening next week. And if I don't see you for whatever reason, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. Good luck with your applications if you submitted them. Please do get those no-cost extensions in as soon as you can, and ask any questions you have to your federal project officers. If you asked me a question and I couldn't answer it today, or I didn't see it, please email me directly, and we'll try to get information out as soon as we can to you with for clarifying what you need to know. So thank you all. Have a pleasant evening. Great to see you all, and continue the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.